I'm getting closer to having the first portion of this build under my belt. Gathering the attendance data is the main objective, and I am finally able to view the scheduled activity and see the date time, the activity name, and the list of residents. Ta-da! I'm using the utility classes, and it makes it quite nice to work with. Really, everything is based on a limited set of parameters. In order to see it output onto the screen, I needed to populate the database. So I have residents being generated. I only needed one activity. The cool thing about it was as soon as I hit that route, after using the database seeder, calling on the residence table seeder and the scheduled activity seeder that reference my factories that I created yesterday, now I'm able to see everything. And to discuss the utility classes a bit, what I love about it is you're referencing background light, you're referencing padding for certain conditions, small, the Y and the X-axis, meaning he's using it as top and bottom or left and right. Full height, meaning 100% height. Equations that I want to begin to understand. Basically, it's a grid file that has different parameters, different widths for the different types of column setups you could have. So it's just great. So you reference them with this shorthand, and it implements them in this way. I'm using a 6-column design for the wide pages, and then it shrinks down to it appears to be the full width. So it encapsulates all of that logic, and it's beautiful because it keeps it simple. It keeps a shorthand here that you can build right into your HTML, and then if you want to go, he has a card that again is just a very simple subset of all of these other parameters that you can then define a card in a more semantic way, still using your shorthand. And this is going to be great for when I'm doing the view components. As for the final thing that I wanted to do today that I didn't quite get accomplished, I wanted to create an additional test that asserts whether or not when you click on the resident in the list, it associates it with that scheduled activity. What I'm beginning to finally understand regarding writing tests, and this is the learning curve that's been a challenge for me and still will be, it's that idea that you're writing the code or you're writing the test using code you wish you had, even if that code, and especially if that code doesn't exist, because that's what the tests allow you to drive out. In this case, I want to ultimately assert that I can see that the database has in this activity attendance pivot table that it has this resident ID for the resident that I clicked on. To get there, the arranging the world phase is I create a scheduled activity, I create a resident. If that resident were clicked on, then it will post or update, which I'm not quite sure if this is something that should be handled by the backend. I can certainly test that the action takes place via Laravel Dusk or Vue and its testing tool, but in continuing with this logic for now to try to understand the PHP unit approach and Laravel's ability to test at least that the data is entering, or that at least that the data is getting to the database, I'm going to try this. If the post action or update action places this information in the database, as my clicking action would do, that's what I'm trying to represent by this act phase. And then the assert phase, I will be going to that pivot table and getting that resident ID. Yeah. I've written this test and it fails, obviously, but this is the question that I have in my mind that I want to flesh out, which will only reinforce my understanding of how to write tests like this and then hopefully create the cleanest code by virtue of having the test directed right at the heart of what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Out of the 2 tasks I wanted to complete, 1 out of 2 ain't bad, and the partial implementation of the second one, I'll give myself a little credit for that. Let's call it 75% complete today.